Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Gopi Jana Ballabha Giridhari Jai Gopi Jana Ballabha Giridhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Mishabam Sabadarajakata, Stoder Satasi Simadesi Bhakti Vedanta, Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki, Jai Mishabam Sabadarajakata, Stoder Satasi Simad Bhakti Siddhanta Sarasi Thakur Prabhupada Ki, Gora Premanandi, Om Agana Timirandasya, Gyananjana Shalakaya, Chakshud Militang Yena, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara, Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I thought to speak tonight about mainly some leelas of approaching Vrindavan, both by Akrura and by Uddhava. Before getting there, though, I have to speak about the transcendental significance of the very place where you've gathered, Govardhan Eco Village, where many of you are living and some of you are visiting. There's an old Chinese saying, which many people take to be a blessing, but it's actually a curse. May you live in interesting times. So right now, in case you haven't noticed, no matter what part of the question of human existence is up in the air. The latest trend in the Western world, and soon to come to India, is the topic of extinction. Can human beings continue to exist without annihilating themselves? And if they can't, is that a problem? If all human beings die out, is that really a great loss? A main conclusion to this deliberation, this thinking, sometimes called extinction ethics, for those of you who like terminology, high-sounding terminology. Extinction means a species is wiped out. So human extinction ethics, often the conclusion is, if it happens because of a catastrophe, then there's so much suffering. But after the catastrophe, there's just nothing, no existence, so that's that. You were nothing before birth, and after death you'll be nothing. So you could say, why worry so much about what happens between birth and death when you're just like a rapidly appearing and disappearing blip? When you die, you won't be around to experience what happens afterwards. So why get upset? So the main problem is we don't want human beings to have a mass die-out due to a catastrophe, whether nuclear, environmental, so on and so forth, because being wiped out that way means pain. Others say that besides the pain of a catastrophic wipeout of humanity, just think of the loss of all the art, culture, the beauty, the moments of happiness that human beings can have. That would be finished. Practically no one can understand what is the value of the human form of life. Something Prahlad Maharaj understood at the age of 5 or so. Komara acharet pragyo dharman bhagavatanaha durlabham manasam janma tarapya duvam artadam. Although this human form of life is adruva, it's temporary, it still has artha, it still has value. And we know what that value is. With this human form of life, you can cross over the ocean of material suffering, finish your material existence, and attain service to Krishna. In these times of global trouble, you see, humanity is caught between two apocalyptic twins. You know the word, many of you, apocalypse. That means just total earthly annihilation. Those twins of total destruction are, on the one hand, nuclear weaponry, on the other hand, climate disruption. What are human beings to do? Here you are at Govardhan Eco Village, famous for sustainability, but real sustainability. You should please understand that talks of sustainability without gratitude are useless. In other words, so much talk about sustainability is simply how to exploit better, how to exploit nature in such a way that there'll be something left over tomorrow instead of gobbling it all up today. That is sustainability. What about showing gratitude for the source and proprietor of all the resources? It's nice that people want to live in a more simple way, some of them. It's nice that human beings are starting to be concerned about their relationship with the environment. But mere sustainability without expression of gratitude is just a continuation of materialism. I like one definition of materialism given by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his Bhagavatam commentary. He's putting himself in that position. He says, I am material because I have pride that with my mind, body, and senses, I can achieve satisfaction. A very confronting definition of materialism and who is a materialist. I am a materialist because I have the pride in thinking that with my body, mind, and words, I can attain satisfaction by using my body, mind, and senses. Yes, it'll take us a while to fully absorb the impact of that statement. Govardhan Eco Village is a different and crucial attempt at sustainability because it's saturated with gratitude, acts of gratitude, places of gratitude, ceremonies of gratitude, acknowledging the hand of Krishna in everything. Krishna has potencies. You can't think of the Supreme Personality of Godhead without thinking of his potencies. Otherwise, you become a Mayavad, you become an impersonalist. There's just undifferentiated Brahman, a mass of pure consciousness. That's all there is. Today I was meditating on Srila Prabhupada's favorite painting. It was of, and he carried a smaller image of this painting in a little white bag he carried with him wherever he went, and he would not let anyone touch that little white bag. In it was a small version of a picture on the wall in his quarters in the Los Angeles temple. The picture showed Radha and Krishna entwined in such a way that they looked like they were one, but then again, you look and they're distinct in their individuality. So Srila Prabhupada said, this picture reveals our Siddhanta perfectly. The absolute truth means oneness between the potent and the potencies. Shakti, Shakti Matura Abheda. Krishna is the possessor of the Shakti, and then there are his Shaktis. And in the case of Srimati Radharani, that is his most personal Shakti. Those of you who have read the beginning of Chaitanya Charitamrita, the introduction, can remember reading how Radha and Krishna are one, but they've separated eternally. It seems contradictory because we're thinking of things in terms of time and space. Our material mind cannot help but do that. In Vrindavan, speaking at the Krishna Balaram Mandir, I was mentioning one way of understanding this phenomenon of Radha and Krishna, given by Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. In this way, you can understand how Radha and Krishna combined are Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then, as you look on the altar here, you see Radha and Krishna and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. How to focus on that reality. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that when Krishna wants to taste love of himself in separation, he appears as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wants to be the supreme enjoyer, he appears as Krishna. Both are Swayam Bhagavan. Both are the original personality of Godhead. So I was explaining at the Krishna Balaram Mandir in Vrindavan how often Prabhupada would correct devotees. He would test them. Who is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? And they would respond generally, he's the incarnation of love of Godhead. No, he is Krishna. So generally, loosely, we say that Mahaprabhu is an avatar, but actually he's avatari, the source of all incarnations. So then you think, wait a minute, isn't Krishna the avatari? Isn't Krishna Swayam Bhagavan? But this is the confidential reality of how Krishna is Swayam Bhagavan, the original personality of Godhead, as is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then when you go deeper into the reality of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you find Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna Nahe Anya. Lord Chaitanya is Radha Krishna combined. Now let's talk a little bit about Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. We may wind up talking about Akrura and Uddhava. We'll see what happens. In Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, you'll find that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu takes the position of Srimati Radharani, takes the emotions and effulgence of Srimati Radharani, sometimes appears as Srimati Radharani herself, and also, Srila Prabhupada says, sometimes takes the role of an assistant maidservant of Srimati Radharani. This is all going on in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Mahaprabhu demonstrated what is life's ultimate necessity. What do human beings truly need to sustain themselves? The soul can only be satisfied by pure devotion to Krishna. How to arrange human existence so that goal can be achieved. Simply being sustainable without gratitude is pure materialism. So what I see going on here at this extraordinary place, I consider it one of the wonders of the world. And you all have a chance to play a part in it. What I see going on is true sustainability. How to live in harmony with nature, and that harmonization, that process of harmony involves expression of gratitude, thankfulness. And because of that recognition of the need for gratitude, the bhakti can flow. But as long as there's the concoction that we can be sustainable without gratitude, without recognizing the source of our resources, you'll see no change in the condition of the world. So what is happening here is all important. There is no other solution to the problems of humanity. Intelligent persons sometimes say, we want sustainable happiness. Sustainable material happiness doesn't exist. It's nice that people are concerned that our version of happiness is destroying our own habitat, it's destroying the whole planet. It's nice that they recognize that. And it's good that they're thinking, some of them, that is there a kind of happiness that is not so destructive? And a few persons will even get more specific than that. What is the kind of happiness that doesn't exploit other human beings? What's the kind of happiness that doesn't exploit other species? What is the sustainable happiness that doesn't destroy the environment? And what about future generations? There's a phenomenon labeled intergenerational tyranny. That means the human beings of today demolish the world so that their children and grandchildren inherit a mess. This is called intergenerational tyranny. So intelligent people are wondering, how are we going to achieve this goal of truly sustainable happiness? Of course, this cannot be attained materially, because the three modes of material nature are always agitating the mind and senses. So therefore, what you're trying to cope with today is the taming of a monster. That monster is known as economic growth. Immediately, when you point a finger at this monster, people get nervous because everyone thinks there's not enough money, the economy needs to grow. Yes, the economy can grow, but in a way that doesn't destroy human beings and destroy the planet. So what we have today is called uneconomic growth. All the severe costs to human endeavors are externalized. They don't show up on the balance sheet. If you're an accountant, you understand this. The profit and loss columns don't reveal all the environmental havoc, the psychological havoc. People embrace economic growth as required human expression. They have no idea how to have economic prosperity without self-destruction. This is the great mystery now of the day. Should we shut down all human endeavors? Can't do that. But human beings have to generate wealth. No one wants to stop from trying to get more money. So in this way, the problems are never solved because people cannot control their mind and senses. This is the Kamsa mentality. Remember when Kamsa called Akrura to him? Kamsa told him, Akrura, I have no better friend than you in the Yadu dynasty. Kamsa knew the art of buttering up someone to achieve his personal objectives. I have no more trusted person than you. I'm approaching you just like Indra approaches Vishnu. So someone might say, Kamsa, what do you need Akrura for to accomplish your plot? And Kamsa would reply, I don't need him, but just as part of the conspiracy, I want to involve Akrura. I am self-sufficient. I can do everything myself. And he's also implying when he says, just like Indra approaches Vishnu, that actually Indra is self-sufficient and Vishnu, I hate him, man, he's useless. So he begins to explain his plan to Akrura. I want you to go to Vrindavan and bring back Krishna and Balaram. I have some surprises for them. The elephant Kuvalayapida will kill them at the gate of the wrestling arena. If somehow they happen to survive that, which is doubtful, the wrestlers will take care of them. Go to Braj, announce to Nanda Maharaj and his cowherds that there's going to be a great festival, the Bow Festival. It'll be a great event. Tell them I'll supply profusely milk and ghee and yogurt. It'll all be there. Tell them come and participate in the great celebration, the great event. he then presented to Akrura a brand new super chariot, a Mercedes-Benz chariot. Kamsa was thinking, when those two boys see Akrura come riding on this brand new luxury chariot, they're going to just immediately want to jump on and come back with him. And he was also thinking, Akrura, these Vaishnavas are very simple. Akrura's mind will be overwhelmed when he sees the chariot, and that'll be another reason for him to do my bidding. So Kamsa thought he had everything figured out, just like a typical leader in the age of Kali. I've got everything figured out. I'll make war in this way, make war in that way, dominate economically this way, dominate economically that way. So Kamsa had his perfect plan, he thought. Bring the two boys, they'll be killed, and then, what next? I'll kill my father, Ugrasena. I'll kill my uncle, Devak. I'll kill Nanda Maharaj. I'll rid myself of all the kings who support the Devatas. And then he made such an honest expression of the Asarika Bhava, the demoniac spirit. It will be very pleasant to rule the world without any obstruction. You can feel that well up in your core of your being. All my enemies will be slain, and it will be very pleasant to have my way without any interference, without any obstruction. So what did Akrura tell him? He commended the plan. Your plan is excellent. But just remember that there's destiny, daiva, and things sometimes work out according to plan and things don't. But in any case, I'll do what you say. Why was Akrura being so submissive? His words had a double meaning, of course. Your plan is brilliant. There's such a thing as destiny. Indirectly, he's telling Kamsa, your plans won't work. But externally, he sounded supportive. Your plans are excellently made. And from the material point of view, the plans were excellent. Kamsa was brilliant, materially. Akrura inwardly was thinking, yes, I'll do exactly what you say because I know soon you're going to be dead. So Akrura went home that night, and the next morning he started for Vrindavan on the brand new Mercedes chariot. And Akrura was happy that the chariot was brand new because he was thinking, I wouldn't want to pick up Krishna and Balaram in Braj in any chariot that Kamsa had sat on previously. But this is a brand new seat, so I'm happy about that. It was a very busy day in Braj. In the morning, the Keshi demon was finished. In the afternoon, the Vyomasura was finished. And in the evening, Akrura arrives. He's in Dasyaras, so he's always thinking in terms of servitude. When you read his entrance into Braj, it's more formal than other entrances, especially the entrance of Uddhava. Akrura sees the footprints. It's a great meditation on how could he see the footprints when there were so many animals with their footprints in Braj, so many other footprints of human beings. But the acharyas explain that for a devotee, the footprints of Krishna suddenly make themselves prominent, suddenly become distinctive. And Akrura saw them and jumped off his chariot and rolled in those footprints, as you know. And he gives many verses describing how he's preparing to see Krishna and Balaram, what he's going to do. Very reverential in servitude. All the way from Mathura to Braj, Akrura had simply been focusing on the eyes of Krishna. He was just thinking of those eyes. It took him all day to get to Braj. He must have been going very slow. He had left Mathura in the morning, and by the time he got to Braj, it was evening. And therefore, Krishna and Balaram had already come back from the forest with the cows. They had already bathed, they were freshly dressed, and they were doing the evening milking. So that's how Akrura first saw them. He saw them from a distance, and he forgot. Am I on the ground? Am I riding on the chariot? And he got closer, and then he realized, I should not be on a higher seat than Krishna and Balaram. I shouldn't be higher in the air. He got a hold of himself. What am I doing? Because he was just overwhelmed before. But then he thought, I need to immediately get off this chariot, plunge onto the ground. When we look at the entrance of Uddhava, this is something different. Krishna called Uddhava to him and took Uddhava's hand in his. Kamsa had done that with Akrura, taken his hand and said, I have no better shelter than you. But of course, Kamsa's purposes were demoniac. Krishna found an opportunity where he could talk to Uddhava privately. The acharyas say this wasn't easy because Krishna is always surrounded by various associates. But he wanted to convey something very personal and private to Uddhava. Uddhava is of mixed rasa. The rasa, as you know from Nectar of Devotion, can be kevala, pure, and it can always be mixed. It can also be mixed. Even in the mixture, though, as you know, one rasa is predominant. So Uddhava is said to be mainly friend, sakyaras, with a streak of dasya prem, servitude. So he's much more intimate with Krishna than Akrura. So why is Krishna taking the hand of Uddhava? It's because he wants to express a pain that he's feeling. Often persons ask the question, how can Krishna feel pain? But in the spiritual world, everything is absolute. Pleasure is a source of bliss, and pain is a source of bliss. This is knowledge of Advaya Gyan, true non-duality. Varieties exist, differences exist, but they all have the effect of Satchidananda. So Krishna's pain is not a material pain, of course. It's another manifestation of spiritual perfection. So he takes Uddhava's hand in his. Why? Bhagavatam explains that Uddhava had sharp intelligence. He's the disciple of Brihaspati. Brihaspati had taught Uddhava all the Shastras except Shastras dealing with prema. That was beyond Brihaspati's pay grade. He was also a dear friend of Krishna's. And he's known as Mantri Raj, the king of the counselors. His advice was so extraordinary. And he was revered among all the Yadu dynasty. And that is important. Why? Because, number one, Krishna wanted to send someone to Braj, not only, as you know, to pacify the intimate associates there, but also that person had to be able to come back to Mathura and let everyone there know. You think you're the topmost lovers of Krishna? Forget it. Because the Mathuravasis were always thinking that Krishna's our family member. No one is as close to Krishna as we are. And amongst us, Vasudeva and Devaki, the parents of Krishna, are topmost. So in Mathura, we've got it all. We've got the best. But Krishna wanted, particularly Uddhava, to go to Braj and come back with a report that would clarify the situation in terms of the various intensities of prema. So Uddhava's status as being known as such a revered member of the Yadu dynasty, that status was very important. But most important was his closeness to Krishna. They practically looked the same. Very little difference in age, beauty, so forth. So Krishna gives this message for Uddhava to bring. Actually, it was several messages. And he told Uddhava, don't rely on your own sharp intelligence. Just deliver these messages. And in other words, use your intelligence how to deliver the messages, but present the messages as they are. You don't have to make something up yourself. So Uddhava had the sharp discretion of knowing how to deliver according to the time and place, according to how to achieve Krishna's objectives. But he didn't write the message. He didn't make up the messages. The messages were coming from Krishna. Bhagavatam doesn't tell us the details of Uddhava's trip to Braj, as it does with Akrura's trip to Braj. But you get to hear about Uddhava's arrival in Vrindavan. The sights, the sounds. He also came in the evening. He got into the town without being seen because the cows covered his chariot with dust. You would normally think that's not very clean, that's not very auspicious, but no. The cloud of dust from the hooves of the calves made his arrival even more auspicious. He heard the sounds of the cows and bulls chasing each other. He heard the sounds of flute playing. He heard the sounds of the gopas and gopis glorifying Krishna's pastimes. He smelled incense, saw the sacrificial fires in all the homes, the beauty in the evening. And then the surrounding the township were lakes and forests and birds chirping and bees humming. But actually all this was the work of Yogamaya, preventing Uddhava from seeing how all the Brijbasis were totally devastated and in sorrow, transcendental sorrow, feeling separation from Krishna. About that sorrow, you see more during the Ratha Yatra chapter of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, where Lord Chaitanya takes up the mood, the bhava of the gopis in general, and particularly Srimati Radharani. Remember, we explained in Chaitanya Charitamrita, you'll see Mahaprabhu in the position of Srimati Radharani, with the emotions and effulgence of Srimati Radharani, sometimes appearing as Srimati Radharani herself, and sometimes, most confidentially, I would say, in the position of a maidservant of Srimati Radharani. It's all going on there in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. So during the ecstatic dancing of Mahaprabhu at Ratha Yatra, this is right before he collapses at the feet of Prataparudra, who he vowed, I'll never see him, I'll never have anything to do with him. But Mahaprabhu's handlers, so to speak, who would form protective rings around him so that he could dance in ecstasy without being disturbed by the general public, they were elsewhere. Nityananda was lost in ecstasy. So when Mahaprabhu falls on the ground at the feet of Prataparudra, none of his assistants are there. None of his protectors are there. And so Prataparudra Maharaj naturally just picks him up, lifts him to his feet. And you know how Mahaprabhu condemned himself. Oh no, I have been touched by a materialist. I've been touched by the king. So Prataparudra was horrified. I've made an offense. I've made an offense. But Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya explained to him that externally the Lord is angry to teach his followers. Watch out about intimate connection with the kingly order, politicians, materially absorbed persons. Watch out for that. But inwardly, he's satisfied with you, especially because you did the menial service of sweeping the road before the wrath cart. When I tell this pastime in the Western world, I have to explain, because people think, well, he swept the road in front of the wrath cart, big deal. Why is it such a mega event? Of course, here in India, you know, street sweepers, lowly position. And for the great king Prataparudra to do such a thing, even though the broom had a golden handle, still, it's sweeping the street. Whereas I tell this story, this pastime in the West, and they think, golden handled broom? That's the first thing they focus on. And so he swept the street. What's the big deal? He's the king. But Mahaprabhu was very touched by this. But he didn't show it externally. This is right after a very intimate section of Chaitanya Charitamrita, where Mahaprabhu starts talking in Gopi Bhava and then Radha Bhava. And you can see the transcendental pain of separation pouring out from the pages. have you forgotten us? First, Srimati Radharani doesn't refer to herself. She refers to, what about Nanda Maharaj, the cowherd people, the bank of the Yamuna, all the sites in Vrindavan, all your relatives, all your associates, have you forgotten them? And she explains that for most persons, the mind and the heart are one. But for me, my mind and Vrindavan are one. So Prabhupada explains in the purport something very intimate. He says that for one who can always think of Krishna's pleasure, everywhere is Vrindavan. I remember, not that I was there, but I have heard the lecture many times when Srila Prabhupada came to Melbourne Temple in Australia. And he explained that as long as you are acting for Krishna's pleasure, he said, this is not Melbourne. This is Vrindavan. As long as everything you do is for Krishna's pleasure. So what Srimati Radharani is saying, coming from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is the most intense experience of that. My mind and Vrindavan are one. And then it would seem like she's criticizing Krishna, but she says, no, you're without any fault, but why have you done this? And then the reply from Krishna is presented. I'm in such pain feeling separation. Again, you have this reality of the most sublime pain as expressed by Krishna himself. So this is what Krishna wanted Uddhava to witness in Vrindavan, the incomparable feelings of separation felt by Krishna's most intimate associates there. And Uddhava was meant to bring the report back to Mathura so that the Mathura Vasis would understand that Ramya Kachchadupasana Vrajavadu Bhargeniya Kalpita. No better way of loving Krishna than that shown by the Vrajavadu, the cowherd ladies of Vrindavan. So this understanding of everything for Krishna's pleasure intensifies as your years in bhakti go on. Just a glimpse of it is enough to produce massive transformations. Just like in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Kaviraj Goswami says that just one drop from the ocean of love of Krishna can drown the whole universe. So sometimes devotees think, when we read these accounts of such intimate leelas in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's so far beyond us. What's the point? But just by hearing, you become purified. Just by hearing, gradually attraction develops. And if you can just get one drop, you can't get the ocean. It's impossible. But one drop from that ocean can drown the whole universe. So in this day and age of utter commotion, world leaders barking at each other, it's not, I don't think this has hit India yet, but it will in the future. People are having trouble believing in the world. Like, what's the point? What's going on? It's an existential crisis. What's the point in having children? That hasn't hit here yet. Why do we have children? It's a crazy world. So amidst all that anxiety, amidst all that confusion, intelligent persons are seizing upon sustainability. But unless that sustainability is connected to gratitude, it'll still be the same troublesome materialism. So this community is based on yajna. Yajna via Vishnu, sacrifice for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It has different layers, culminating in the magic, the intimate magic of the Vrindavan forest. So people can come here and they can swim according in the pool of Krishna consciousness according to their level. As Gauranga Prabhu was explaining, some persons, they are transcendental consumers. They come, spend money at the restaurant, they buy things in the gift shop, buy some books. That's wonderful. Others go deeper. I saw the sign out there, this is not a tourist spot. Talk Krishna Katha. Some persons go into the Vrindavan forest and their life changes. Meanwhile, everywhere people look are signs of real sustainability, connected to Krishna. So without a spiritual backing, what is the use of sustainability? It's just well-mannered exploitation. Genteel, gentlemanly, and ladylike resource grabbing, so there's something tomorrow instead of just eating it all today. That's sustainability. So you all are making such a glorious example for the whole world, and every time I come here I'm in such awe. This is a beacon for the whole planet. I wish there were many, many more Govardhan eco villages. You have to develop some yogic cities so you can expand yourselves. All right, any questions? Okay, no questions. Mohan Vilas warned me about this, by the way. Yes. Start again.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, being in the, as I said, the gratitude part. So most of the time, being in the association of devotee community, maybe we may be doing a Vaishnava Aparadha. Because of that, we may forget as a gratitude to seniors who taught that, how to overcome that and still being gratitude to them.
Overcome what?
The Vaishnava Aparadha and still being a gratitude to them.
It's always a good practice that anyone who has, any devotee who has in some way helped you in your spiritual life, you never let that person forget it. You always remind that person. And in that way, that person, that devotee, humbly feels increase in that way. So gratitude toward the Vaishnavas is extremely important, especially for anyone who has inspired you, helped you, encouraged you from the very beginning. Never let them forget it. They, oh, Prabhu, please, I'm just your servant. I'm just a tiny, insignificant little creature. They say like that. Still, don't let them forget it. It's good for them and good for you, because they'll feel more inspired to go the extra mile for someone else.
you so much, Maharaj.
Just like Gauranga Prabhu had me speak in Mayapur, amongst what I call his Chamber of Commerce. Devotees, a devotee panel where they were all experts at generating wealth for Krishna, partnering with Krishna. Very exciting, very eye-opening. So I told how, as a irreligious New Yorker, Ivy Leaguer, I somehow or other developed an attraction for Prabhupada's books, and not wanting at all to associate with devotees, I thought they were very strange creatures. Aliens, dressed funny, and my father would, when he saw that I was reading the books, Prabhupada's books, he'd say, "Oh, you're into that warm weather religion." Because he saw her on the streets of New York wearing dhotis and saris, so we could say, "This is a warm weather religion." So I didn't want anything to do with devotees. But I loved the books. But one day I would order my books from BBT mail order, so I would never have to talk to a devotee. But one day I got a message in the post from the BBT that the first version of Prabhupada's first canto was coming out. Otherwise, before that were just the volumes he had printed in Delhi, which were very crude and hard to understand. But this was going to be the first real English edition. So I thought to myself, I can't wait for this to come in the post. I've been reading all the books I have over and over again, and now I get this notice in the mail that the encyclopedia of the spiritual world has now manifest. So to make a long story short, I had to go find a devotee. And there I was, appearing as a pseudo-sophisticated New Yorker, Sai Baba hairstyle, long, long leather coat. And so I walked up to this Mataji distributor in a huge bus terminal, with no less than 5,000 persons running through this bus terminal at one time. So I said, let's see if she stops me. I walked past her once, I walked past her twice, she didn't stop me. I said, what to do? All right, I'm going to have to walk up to her. So I walked up to her and asked what I thought was a normal, routine question. I walked up to her. Bear in mind, this is 1972 New York City. So I walked up to her asking her a question, which I thought was ordinary. I said, do you have Srimad Bhagavatam? Which was an outlandish question that anyone would say in 1972 in New York. So her eyes jumped, but she was an expert Sankirtan devotee. She controlled her facial expression. How do you know about that? I said, I'm not here to answer any questions. I just want to know, do you have the book? And then she just went to a whole presentation about, we're trying to get a new building in New York City, and you could probably help. You probably got money. I said, I don't have any money. Of course, I lied. So I told her, I just graduated from university. She said, oh, what university? I said, Yale. You don't have money, eh? She said, you either have to be rich to go there or you soon will be rich. So I didn't know what more to say. This is going on 15, 20 minutes. I'm arguing. I said, look, I tell you what, I'll leave you some money in my will. She said, how old are you? I said, 21. You've been reading these books at home. You know how important the message is for the world. You should give something. So then I thought I had escaped. I said, even if I wanted to give you some money, I don't have it with me. It's all at my father's house. She said, let's go. I was thinking, I couldn't get rid of her. This strange-looking girl wearing a yellow bed sheet with a mark on her forehead. So anyway, I couldn't get rid of her. We went on the subway in Manhattan to my father's apartment, and he was on the 14th floor where I stayed. And so I told her, you just stay down at the ground level. I'm not taking you upstairs because my parents will freak out, see, this strange. So I went up on the elevator, came down with my checkbook, and in today's financial equivalents, I wrote out a check for $5,000. Now, bear in mind, I had never been to a temple, never been to a devotional gathering. So I gave her a check for $5,000 and thought, that's the end of this. She took it very nicely and said, this is very wonderful, but I'm sure you can give $10,000. Wait a minute. What is this? I've never given a penny in charity in my whole life. I've just given you $5,000. I've never been to your temple. I don't know you. And you're asking for $10,000 on the streets of New York. But she was insistent. And then actually, I'll tell you, I haven't ever told this part of the story. Of course, being a young man in material consciousness, I was in body consciousness. So I was afraid that if the neighbors look out from their high-rise apartment buildings and see me talking to a white woman, my reputation in the neighborhood will be finished. That's how Krishna tricked me. Do what she says so she can go. Otherwise, people are looking at you, and you're supposed to be cool. And it's because these were times of various social movements in the USA. And so the cool thing was to date with the colonizers. You have your various strands of that here. I know. So I heard a voice inside my heart saying, give her what she wants, because everyone in the neighborhood is looking out of their high-rise apartment buildings looking at you, and your reputation in the neighborhood will be finished. Actually, I didn't know anyone in the neighborhood. It's New York. Anyway, I went up to the apartment, came down with a check for $10,000, ripped up the other one, and so she took it. I thought, that's the end of that. I'm finished with these people. 2 weeks later, I was going through the same bus terminal on my way to visit some friends who are still at Yale, and the devotees see me. There he is! There he is! I said, oh no! We have a place where we have some spiritual food. It's called prasad. We just want to give you a bit of that. I said, okay, let's see what it tastes like. And then in the process of their giving me prasad, they said, and by the way, wouldn't you like to make another donation? I said, no, I would not like to make another donation. But they were very expert. So again, the same trip on the subway to my father's apartment. Again, I wrote out a check for another $10,000. That's now totaling $20,000 in 2 weeks. And I remember she took the checkbook from my hand and looked at the entries. Oh, now you have no more money. This is very good. Now you can come to the temple finally and see what it's like. So that's how I finally started going to the temple, after I gave $20,000 on the streets of New York. So every time I see that devotee, I always express my gratitude. And I do ask her for the money back now. And she tells me, you'll have to chase me all the way to Golok. Like, you can give the money back now. I can really use it, you know? So that's an example of constant expression of gratitude. And so if you always keep that in mind, you won't grow familiar with anything else? Or I have to tell more stories, huh? All right. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.